Nikolai Konstantinovich Shishkin, artilleryman, battery commander of ISU-152 self-propelled guns, participant of the Finnish War and the Great Patriotic War. He went from the Karelian Isthmus in the siege of Leningrad to the Battle of Kursk, Belarus, and the Baltics. Awarded the Order of the Red Star, the Medal for Courage, and other combat awards. I was born and raised in Kazakhstan, in the city of Petropavlovsk. In 1939, I graduated from high school with honors and, full of hopes for the future, applied to 3 institutes at once: Moscow Aviation Institute, Moscow Architectural Institute, and Sverdlovsk Polytechnic Institute. Back then, excellent students were admitted without exams, so I got into all 3. I faced a choice and decided to go to the Sverdlovsk Polytechnic Institute to study at the metallurgical faculty. It seemed that life was opening up new horizons, and I would have a peaceful profession and a quiet future. But fate decreed otherwise. 2 months after I started my studies, the Finnish War broke out. Universities announced a voluntary conscription of students for military service. We could have stayed at the institutes, but back then we were all patriots, and the decision was unanimous: to go and defend the motherland. We wrote applications in whole courses. The same was true for students from neighboring institutes. We thought we would be sent straight to the Western Front, but we ended up in the city of Ahinsk. Snow was already falling there. At the transit point, we were washed and changed into army uniforms. Our appearance changed so much that we didn't recognize each other at first. On the parade ground, we were lined up in 2 ranks, and officers walked through them, selecting soldiers for their units. I ended up in regimental artillery. That's how I became a gunner of a 76mm gun, model 1927. I went through the entire Finnish War and the beginning of the Great Patriotic War with this gun. The platoon commander was Lieutenant Oriol, and my gun was led by Seaman, the same one who later received the Hero Star for the battle on the Karelian Isthmus, when the Finns broke through to our regimental headquarters. Back then, our recoil mechanism wasn't working, but we turned the gun around and rolled it by hand, opening fire. That's how we saved the headquarters. For this feat, Seaman was awarded, became a captain, but then died absurdly. In Ahinsk, we were taught a little, but thoroughly. They didn't let us shoot. We only loaded wooden blanks. Lieutenant Oriol conducted training with us even on the road. He taught us how to set the goniometer and elevation by touch. By the time we reached the front, we could set the angles with an error of only hundredths of a degree. That's how my military life began. We were unloaded at Dno Station. From there, we dragged the cannons through the snow to the firing range and were allowed to fire live shells for the first time. For us, the rookies, it was a real test. The smell of gunpowder, the roar of shots. But along with it came the first disappointment. We were hungry all day, and when the field kitchen finally arrived in the evening, it turned out the cooks had forgotten the salt. Pea soup without salt was completely inedible. Lieutenant Oriol advised us to add sugar, assuring us it would be the same. But with sugar, the food became even more disgusting. From these places, we moved towards the Vyborg direction as part of the 613th Rifle Regiment of the 91st Rifle Division. The fighting there was heavy. December, snow up to our waists. We Siberians were well prepared and equipped. Sheepskin coats, ear-flapped hats, mittens up to our elbows. We endured 40-degree frost without much trouble and could lie in the snow for several days. We had been prepared for this back in Siberia. The platoon commander drove us through the snow, to the gun, then back to cover. This hardened us and saved us from the cold. On the Karelian Isthmus, these trainings came in handy. We could quickly open fire and then take cover from mortar shelling. All the time we had to carry the gun by hand, following the infantry, firing direct fire. Every step was paid for with blood. 100 meters forward, a week of fighting, then another 100 meters. That's how we broke through the Mannerheim line. The losses were terrible. The command underestimated the enemy, and the Finns had built a well-designed defense with concrete pillboxes and fire sacks. To dislodge such fortifications, heavy howitzers or a ton of explosives were needed. But we were often thrown into battle without reconnaissance and without preparation. The soldiers did everything they could, but blood flowed in rivers. The Finnish War became a hard school, without which the Patriotic War would have been even worse for us. Our regimental artillery supported the infantry. We were always nearby, pushing our guns right behind the attackers. Command was channeled through battalion commanders and company messengers. Communication relied on voices, whistles, and flares. We fired at machine gun nests, embrasures, covering the advance of the riflemen. Ammunition was limited, 80 shells per gun, and we were allowed to expend no more than 20-40 per day. Everything had limits, and we had to shoot wisely. Commissars maintained morale. They spared no effort, speaking with the soldiers on a human level. In our battery, however, we rarely gathered together. We were always scattered across positions. Vodka was issued regularly, but it didn't help much. The frost froze the ground, dugouts couldn't be dug, and at night we hid in the snow under spruce branches. Rations were tolerable. We didn't feel constant hunger. I only saw Finns through the sights, but once a real enemy appeared in our kitchen. Our cook, Vanya Shishkin, a cheerful strong man, was serving soup when he suddenly recognized a Finn in one of the soldiers in line. He hit him on the head with a ladle, and he was right. The Finn had come for soup to our kitchen. For his vigilance, Vanya was awarded the Medal for Courage. The last battles were for Vyborg. Our infantry was stuck under barbed wire, under machine gun fire. The regimental commander gathered all remaining men, led the attack, and personally rallied the troops. We lost many but broke into the city. And on the night of June 12th, when the armistice was already known, all our artillery pounded the Finns all night, sparing no shells. In the summer of 1940, our division was transferred to the Hanko Peninsula, where the 8th Separate Rifle Brigade was formed based on it. We began to equip the border. I walked with the Demarcation Commission, carrying an artillery compass. The chairman of the commission was General Krykov, and on the Finnish side there was a unit with which we had recently fought on the Karelian Isthmus. I remember one Finn saying to our captain Sukash, "We were enemies recently, and now we are building a peaceful border together." I witnessed this scene. The garrison on the peninsula traded with the Finns. Milk, butter, vegetables, all crossed the border. We set up defensive lines. On Petrovskaya Glade, where Peter once dragged ships, we dug trenches, built dugouts, stretched electrified wire, and mined approaches. Our engineer, Lieutenant Repnev, even invented controllable landmines and stone throwers, gunpowder charges with bags of stones. We were strictly ordered not to shoot first so as not to provoke a war. I remember an incident. The driver of a Komsomolets tractor, Yemelyan Nesin, accidentally fired a burst while cleaning his machine gun. He was immediately taken to the special department as a possible provocateur, but was soon released. He just joked. They told me to keep quiet. On June 22, 1941, we heard on the radio that the war had begun, but on Hanko there was silence. Only on June 25th did the Finns open artillery fire, and on the night of July 1st, a 2-hour artillery barrage began. The forest was ablaze, the roar was unbearable. After the cannonade, the Finns attacked in continuous lines. We met them with fire. We worked on our knees so as not to stick out above the gun shield. In that battle, our crew almost perished. Sasha Krivtsov, a strong loader, noticed that a shell was stuck in the barrel. According to regulations, it should have been carefully pushed out with a half ramrod, but in the confusion, it was missing. Sasha grabbed an ordinary ramrod, rushed out under enemy fire, and dislodged the shell. Fortunately, it did not explode, and Sasha survived. For this feat, he received the Order of the Red Star. We held the defense for 200 days. The Finns attacked again and again, but we repelled them. In between, they showered us with leaflets and propaganda. Sometimes we would fall silent for a day, pretending to evacuate, and then suddenly open intense fire, plowing up the entire front line. In December, the order came to abandon Hanko. Our regiment retreated last. At midnight, we threw the locks out of our guns and left on foot, rolling only one, my gun, as a symbolic one that started the war. They say it is now in a museum in Leningrad. During the evacuation, we traveled in a convoy of ships. In front of us, the diesel-electric ship Stalin exploded. I later learned from Ahmed Galiev, a soldier in my crew, that panic and gunfire broke out on that vessel, and he miraculously managed to escape by jumping from the side onto a minesweeper. Thus ended our service in Hanko, and a new, even more terrible stage of the war began. On June 22nd, we heard on the radio that Germany had attacked the Soviet Union. But on Hanko that day, everything was quiet. Only an anxious anticipation hung in the air. On June 25th, the Finns first shelled our positions, and the real storm broke out on the night of July 3rd. The artillery preparation lasted 2 hours. The forest was ablaze, stones cracked, and the earth trembled underfoot. We sat in a dugout, and the gun stood on the firing platform covered by a parapet. When the cannonade subsided, the Finns attacked in waves. 2 machine gun pillboxes next to us fired flanking shots, and our gun covered them from the top of an imaginary triangle. We fired grape shot as needed, not having time to choose shells. Krivtsov, a huge guy, literally threw the gun from side to side, and sometimes a shot occurred while he held it aloft. In the midst of the battle, something terrible happened. The shot didn't fire, the shell got stuck in the barrel. According to instructions, it should have been knocked out with a special half-ramrod, but it wasn't there. Then Sasha Krivtsov grabbed an ordinary ramrod, shouted to us, "Get down!" rushed out under the bullets and pushed out the shell. It didn't explode, and Sasha survived. For this feat, he received the Order of the Red Star. The battle lasted 2 hours. Twice the Finns attacked, and twice they retreated. They managed to get within 20 meters of our gun, but we held out. We laid down about 200 enemy soldiers and officers. By the end of the battle, we had only 6 shells left, and the ammunition carrier Ozerov was wounded. When everything went quiet, we were deaf, and blood was coming from our ears and nose. Our dugout shook from the impacts. The channels hummed so much that we lost our hearing. After this battle, our entire crew was replaced, and we were sent to the hospital. For a week we recovered, then returned to duty. We changed positions, camouflaging the gun as a shed. That's how we held out for 164 days. The Finns showered us with leaflets, promising a hopeless situation, and we responded with our own, sometimes even funny ones, to boost morale. Every 2 to 3 weeks, the enemy repeated attacks but could not advance. Finally, an evacuation order came. At noon on December 1st, we ceased fire, and at midnight, we abandoned our guns, throwing away the locks. We only rolled my gun with us, as a symbol of heroism. Thus ended our defense of Hanko. We were the last to leave. I remember this stage of the war as the most difficult. Constant shelling, hunger, fatigue, but also the resilience of the people who did not allow the enemy to advance a single step. After the evacuation from Hanko, we were incorporated into the formation of a new division, commanded by Colonel Simonyak. We found ourselves on the Leningrad front. It was especially difficult here. People died not only in battles, but also from hunger. I vividly recall one incident. The owner of the house where we rested between battles went outside, walked only 50 meters, and died of exhaustion. In his pocket, he had a piece of bread, but he was saving it. Such were the times. Our ration consisted of half a pot of soup, in which floated a single pea and a piece of bread. Sometimes snow was added to the soup to fill our stomachs with something. We divided the bread into cubes and slowly chewed each piece to trick our hunger. But despite our exhaustion, we continued to drag guns and fight. In September 1942, our division participated in an attempt to break the blockade in the Ivanovskoye area, in the so-called Valley of Death. We took up initial positions 100 meters from German wire entanglements. The offensive was supposed to begin at 8 in the morning after a 2-hour artillery preparation, but it was delayed by an hour. By then, the fog had lifted, and the Germans opened heavy fire on the concentrated infantry. The losses were enormous even before the attack began. When the artillery preparation finally began, it was disorganized and ineffective. The infantry rose to attack, but was already half destroyed. We, with our gun, were nearby and tried to provide fire support. Soon the Germans launched a flanking attack. Our gun was damaged, the panoramic sight broken, a wheel torn off, but it could still fire. I turned the gun around and fired the remaining shells at a group of enemy soldiers. This stopped them and saved the company that was pressing on the front line. For these battles, I was first nominated for the title of Hero of the Soviet Union, but the breakthrough was unsuccessful, the losses enormous, and the nomination was not approved. After the battles, the command offered a choice: to receive the officer rank of junior lieutenant directly at the front, or to go to a military school in the hinterland. I chose the latter. Fatigue, hunger, and constant tension took their toll. I wanted a break. So I found myself in the Saratov Artillery School, where I completed a 3-month course. There we spent more time chopping wood than studying. But as frontline soldiers with combat experience, we knew artillery better than many young lieutenants. Soon we were promoted and sent back to the front. After graduating from the academy, I was sent to Chelyabinsk, where I was given command of a Su-152 self-propelled gun. In April 1943, already a lieutenant, I became the commander of this heavy vehicle. Our 1545th Heavy Self-Propelled Artillery Regiment, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Kardashov, became part of the 30th Ural Volunteer Tank Corps of the 4th Tank Army. Kardashov was a strict and intelligent commander. He immediately instilled a simple rule in us. First, get the weapons in order, refuel the vehicles, and check the running gear. And only then were we allowed to eat and rest. He forbade thoughtless attacks and always demanded the use of terrain, concealment, and surprise. "If you charge headlong, I'll be the first to squash you," he used to say. Thanks to this approach, we had damaged vehicles, but personnel losses were relatively low. We had our first serious baptism of fire near the Nuga River, beyond which lay the village of Bolshaya Chernya. The Germans had turned it into a strong point, and 88mm anti-aircraft guns were firing at our tanks from there. In the rye-covered field, it was impossible to tell where the fire was coming from. Our tanks caught fire one after another. My gunner was Bishkov, an excellent artilleryman. In this battle, he destroyed 2 German tanks. At some point, our self-propelled gun was hit. Sparks flew in the fighting compartment, and there was a smell of burning metal. The driver, Nikonov, plunged the vehicle into a hollow, and that saved us. I climbed out of the hatch and spotted an anti-tank gun in the bushes on the edge of the field. We turned around and aimed the gun at the landmark. With the first shot, we destroyed it. It was a lucky break. If we had missed, we wouldn't have survived. Then Panthers entered the battle. They struck our tank's flank. In the dust and smoke, it was almost impossible to distinguish whose vehicles were in front of us. We burned 3 of them at a distance of about 1 kilometer. At one point, I even feared they were our T-34s. That's how hard it was to tell. Only after spotting the crosses on their turrets did I calm down. In those same battles, I first met Army Commander Bogdanov. During the attack, our self-propelled gun was damaged. A blank shell pierced the gun's trunnion. We rolled back behind a hill, and there I saw Bogdanov with a tablet in his hand. He asked, "Where are we heading?" I replied, "The gun is damaged." He waved his hand. "To repairs." He said it calmly, but he could have shot me for retreating if he had thought we were backing off without reason. In the nearest forest, mechanics replaced the gun, and soon we were back in action. That's how I passed my first serious test as a Su-152 commander. It was a new war. Armor against armor, flames, the roar of tank engines, and heavy guns. A couple of weeks later, in one of the battles, the battery commander was wounded, and I was forced to take command. I had experience from 2 wars, the Finnish War and the Great Patriotic War, so I was able to handle the task, whereas many self-propelled gun commanders were on the front line for the first time. Gradually, I grew into the role, and later, during a new formation, I was officially confirmed in this position. During the Battle of Kursk, our 30th Ural Volunteer Tank Corps was awarded the title of Guards. I was awarded the Order of the Red Star. On that day, it was a custom in the regiment to drop the order into a glass of vodka and drink it to the bottom before pinning it to the tunic. I had not drunk during either the Finnish or the Patriotic War, but it was impossible to refuse. The regimental commander himself poured me a glass, dropped the order into it, and offered it to me. I drank it, had a bite, and he, laughing, said, "You said you don't drink? You drink by the glass." It was a peculiar combat ritual, my communion. In addition to awards, crews also received cash bonuses for knocked-out tanks, 2,000 rubles for each. Usually during an operation, we would destroy several vehicles, and the money would be divided either equally or taking into account the needs of specific soldiers. For example, if someone had elderly parents or children at home, they would be given a larger share so they could send it to their relatives. Even the officer's ration, biscuits, canned meat, sweets, we always shared with the entire crew. This united the people and made our team strong. I paid a lot of attention to the training of gunners. As a former gunner myself, I knew the value of every shot, and my men shot better than anyone. Gunner Bychkov was especially accurate. He could hit a tank from a kilometer away on the first try. We also had our own military discipline. An incident happened in the submachine gun platoon. New recruits arrived, among whom was a former convict. On the second day, he stole a loaf of bread from his own comrades. I couldn't leave this unpunished. I ordered them to dig a hole so that only his head stuck out, put him in it, and posted a guard. Everyone saw it. The shame was terrible. A few hours later, he begged me to release him and promised to atone for his guilt with blood. A few days later in battle, he indeed saved my life. We were moving through a village, and I was sitting on the turret of the self-propelled gun. Suddenly, he pushed me so hard that I tumbled down. At that moment, a German submachine gunner opened fire from the roof of a barn. If I had stayed in place, I would have been cut down. The soldier was wounded, but he saved me. For this act, I nominated him for the Order of the Red Star. Thus, we passed the Kursk Bulge, in blood, in fire, but also with the feeling that we had become a true combat family. From late 1943, our regiment was stationed in the Karelian area, undergoing formation. We received new vehicles, repaired old ones, and engaged in combat training. I devoted a lot of time to training my crews, especially in shooting. Without false modesty, I can say, my battery shot better than anyone else. In early 1944, we were transferred to the 5th Guards Tank Army. In the spring, we were redeployed to Ukraine. There, heavy fighting took place near Targofrumos. In May, during one of the raids, I was wounded. The Germans conducted harassing artillery fire, and then dozens of planes swooped down. I leaned out of the turret, and a shell or bomb exploded nearby. A fragment hit me in the back. The guys quickly bandaged me when I was taken to the hospital. The doctors didn't operate. They inserted a gauze tourniquet into the wound, pulled it out soaked in blood, and put a new one in. I walked around like that for 2 weeks until the wound healed. Later, it turned out that the fragment was stuck near my heart and remained there forever. In June, we were transferred to Belarus. Our regiment operated as part of the 3rd Guards Kotelnikov Corps. My battery almost always fought alongside the 19th Guards Tank Brigade under the command of Zora Pokodzev. He was a man of few words, but demanding and very competent. At meetings, everything was brief. Do you know the task? Yes. Understood? Understood. Dismissed. In one of the battles near Babur, the Corps engaged in an encounter battle with a German division. The Germans were defeated, but I was severely wounded. A shell exploded right in front of me, and fragments pierced my stomach. I fell and lay in a trench for a whole day until I was sent to a field hospital. The hospital consisted of a dozen tents, and there were so many wounded that I wasn't even placed on a table, but simply left on the straw. Only when the regimental commander arrived and insisted was I stitched up and bandaged. A week later, I returned to duty. We took Minsk without me. At that time, I was back in the hospital because the old wound was not healing, but soon I returned to the battery again when the troops had already taken Vilnius. The fighting was fierce. We were thrown from one direction to another, Sialii, Tukums. The front line changed like a kaleidoscope, and we were constantly on the move. In Lithuania, fierce battles were raging. We were transferred from Sialii to Tukums and then to other directions. The front line was changing rapidly, and we were trying to cut off the Kurland group. The command promised, whoever entered Tukums first would receive the title of hero. We pushed forward, losing men, but no one received the hero title. I particularly remember crossing the Jelga River. We advanced on the enemy's heels, captured a bridgehead, but beyond that, the Germans met us with stubborn resistance. Tanks, barely out of the low ground, came under almost direct fire and burned one after another. Tank commanders called for artillery support, but the artillery had not yet deployed. Then they climbed out of their vehicles and marked targets manually. We destroyed several German tanks, but we also lost our own vehicles. All day, we rushed between positions, trying to break through. Evening came, and again the order came, to attack. Tanks started their engines and fired into the sky, reporting the attack, but did not move. Only in the morning, when the main forces and artillery arrived, were we able to break through the defenses. The losses turned out to be minimal, although the day before, incompetent orders had cost dozens of lives. Even more vivid was the battle near Memel. There I was nominated for the Order of Suvorov, 3rd class. We were preparing to attack Hill 29.4, covered with forest. The brigade had only 20 tanks, essentially 1 battalion. We spotted several German vehicles and destroyed them from ambush. My gunners were excellent shots. In 24 hours, we destroyed 10 tanks. But the infantry and tanks had a hard time. They would rush out into the open and come under accurate fire. Men didn't want to burn, and the attacks faltered. When the brigadier, a bit drunk, tried to lead the brigade into a 4th attack, one of the battalion commanders drew his pistol and said, "If you send us again, I'll shoot you. I don't care. Either burn now or go to a penal battalion." At that moment, my battery was sent to a new sector, but suddenly an order came to return and restore the situation. 5 Tigers emerged from the grove. We opened fire from 400 meters. 4 vehicles were knocked out immediately. The 5th tried to retreat but was finished off by Ustinov's crew. That's how we held our positions, although the entire brigade was almost destroyed by then. The award nomination eventually got lost or was not approved. After all, memo wasn't taken immediately then. I was already used to it. At the front, awards often didn't reach the recipient, but for me, the main thing was something else. That we had stood our ground again. Thus ended my war in the Baltics. Further on were new operations, new attacks, new losses. But I remember these battles near Tukums and Memel as if they were yesterday.